when I was 15 years old, three things happened. We moved to a very rural place. It was 5 miles to my nearest neighbor up a dirt road. Telephone poles ended at my door. Simultaneously, my sister was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is cancer of the lymph nodes, which is actually the detoxification system inside the body. It's 3.5 times the blood system. And over the course of 4 years, we were going to the hospital and doing all the treatments and all that stuff. We'd stop. It was like 55 miles from the hospital. We'd stop 5, 6 times for her to get out and vomit after the treatment. And in my naive 15-year-old self, I was thinking, man, if you want to be healthy, shouldn't whatever your treatment is like make you feel healthier? And that was a burning aspect, and probably the trauma of all that experience led me to the career I has. And then she died at 22 years old. And I realized at that point, and that was just when I was entering university, and I thought, well, your health isn't a guarantee and your life isn't a guarantee. You know, she was an excellent athlete and she was going to end on to a military career. She was really established in the Air Force. And seeing that all taken away, and us as a family having no idea what to do, just relying on medicine and doctors and whatever they had it was really frustrating. And so I think those traumas directed me to kind of find the ways to build as much health and vitality that we possibly could. Maybe I can't extend people's lives, but I'm extremely confident that I can improve the quality of the life that they have at the time they have been given.
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end, my debt don't extend me on my dividends if it did.
You know, Wade, I can describe you in so many ways, but I'd rather hear it from you. What is it that you and Bioptimizers, your company, do? But more importantly, why do you do it?
We're on a mission to take people from sick to superhuman, wherever they fall on that scale, whether they're suffering. We started out, you know, people's just suffering from a variety of conditions, digestive conditions, health issues, things like that. Matt and I fell in love with transforming people years ago, back when we were personal trainers and nutritionists and exercise physiologists. And now we've, you know, evolved into the biohacking and superhuman optimization side of things, which is like, what are the things that are going to let us live long and strong and extend healthy biospan, what we call, which is living healthily and long to 100 and beyond.
I love that. And what's really interesting is that you mentioned the living to 100 and beyond. And I've listened to a few interviews you've done to prepare for this. And what I like is I feel like you have, sort of like me, a little bit of a spiritual perspective to aging, right? So there are people in the space like the Dave Asprey's, a friend of mine, Sergey Young, who has like the largest fund for optimization and startups who are focused on longevity. But my perspective, and I think yours is too, is it's not necessarily trying to trick nature or, you know, trying to hack something. You know, if for me, it's all about my spiritual progression. That's why I'm here. I came here to do the curriculum of life and get the lessons that I need from this incarnation. But while I'm here, I would like to stay here as long as I can and do it in an optimal way. Is that kind of your perspective?
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of people don't touch on that aspect. And you know, I've had a deep spiritual practice. I sometimes call myself a spiritual trust fund baby, in that I've been able to experience an extraordinary array of non-linear, what some people would coin spiritual experiences. And I certainly, that have influenced the entire course of my life, the essence of who I am and the essence of what I'm doing. And so I don't have to operate from a position of faith or belief. It's a position of knowing that there's an infinite stream of light that sources everything, and we come from it, we return to it, and this is a temporary situation. That being said, in that temporary situation, I've got my human 3-dimensional, you know, experiential suit with all of its fun things and all of its limitations. And so as a person who's worked on that extensively, I think I can provide some unique insights in how people can enjoy their time here on planet Earth to the best of their capacity, and hopefully share their gifts to the world without being compromised by some physical condition that's limiting them, whether that's low energy or suffering from a disease condition.
Can you tell me about one of those spiritual experiences or something that maybe has stuck with you, or a practice?
Sure. I'll give you two. I always say everything changed the day after I died. So 22, I had a near-death experience, which transcended me into an interdimensionary plane, which I was able to experience many of the things. And I didn't know about reincarnation. I didn't know about, I was a kid and it runs like kind of like a traditional Christian mindset. And once I had that experience, that just kind of just blew up my whole world. Like, how do I deal with this whole thing now, this new knowledge and information? That led me ultimately to pursuing the study of Eastern philosophy. And I had some unique experiences with Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi and was probably the biggest influence in Western society of bringing Eastern philosophy into the North American mindset and something that we could digest, absorb, and understand or comprehend. And so I started practicing the meditation and energization aspects of that philosophy and then applying it. And then inside of that, my quest for a more combination of a unification between Western quantitative experiences and Eastern qualitative experiences, I discovered Dr. David Hawkins and his map of consciousness and power versus force. And I think when someone just looks at that map and realizes that it's a single spectrum that we're experiencing, but our minds tends to bifurcate things into yes or no. But really, there's a whole range on the map on the map of consciousness, from 0 being, the termination of life, to 1,000 on a logarithmic scale, which is what, Buddha or Jesus or Krishna or Zoroaster or one of those avatars that have influenced societies for thousands of years. Then you can kind of see where you fall, where other people fall. And it's not the question of what's bad or what's good or who's better or who's not. It's like colors on a rainbow. Is yellow better than red or blue superior to green? No, it's just representational of a different frequency band. And we can take the advantages and we can try to understand the aversions. So the attractions and aversions of each one of those sets. And that makes life much more manageable.
Wow, I got so many chills from you saying a lot of those things. Autobiography of a Yogi, one of the best books. In fact, I always love to give books away. So I would love to give that book away, Autobiography of a Yogi, to 2 listeners. So all they have to do is just, if they're watching this on YouTube, they can comment Autobiography of a Yogi, and I'll choose 2 people. Or if they're listening on a podcast app, they can give it 5 stars, send me a screen grab, and I'll send them a copy as well. So thanks for bringing that book up. As far as David Hawkins too, Power versus Force is probably, when I ask my guests to recommend a book, that's been the one without a doubt. That's the most recommended. I just got tagged actually this morning from some listener on Instagram who showed a copy of her book, saying that she just bought it because she heard somebody mention it. I want to talk about, because you said with bioptimizers, you're hitting sort of all the different components of aging, and there's one product that I absolutely love, but I'll talk about that later. I'll get to it later. I want to start with sort of the one I think that's, if I'm not wrong, the most popular, maybe put you on the map. It's the one I hear about constantly, is Magnesium Breakthrough. Is that right? Would that be the most popular product?
Magnesium Breakthrough has been a runaway freight train of success, largely because its results are relatively immediate. It's somatic in its experience. In other words, people feel something. And 3, the deficiency, like magnesium deficiency overall in the population, is so extreme that the breadth of people that this applies to is virtually everyone. And so we were simply trying to solve a problem that we had. And we didn't know that problem was so pervasive in society. And there's some reasons why I think that is. We've unpacked why that might potentially be. And we also were able to overcome some significant production issues that other companies weren't able to solve. So, so there's a multitude of reasons of why Magnesium Breakthrough has become the success it has.
Hey, did you know that there is one phase of sleep that almost everyone fails to get enough of? And this one phase of sleep is responsible for your body's daily rejuvenation, repair, controlling hunger, weight loss hormones, boosting energy, and so much more. And I'm talking about deep sleep. And if you don't get enough, you'll probably always struggle with cravings, slow metabolism, premature aging, or even worse conditions. So why don't people get enough of this one important phase of sleep? A big reason is magnesium deficiency. 80% of the population is deficient in magnesium, and magnesium increases GABA, which encourages relaxation on a cellular level, which is critical for sleep. Magnesium also plays a key role in regulating your body's stress response system. So those with magnesium deficiencies usually have higher levels of anxiety and higher levels of stress, which negatively impacts sleep as well. Now, before you go out there and just buy any magnesium supplement, because I know there are a lot on the market, it's important to understand that most products only have 1 or 2 types of magnesium, when in reality, your body needs all 7 forms of magnesium for essential sleep. That's why I recommend and take regularly Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. Magnesium Breakthrough contains all 7 forms of magnesium designed to help calm your mind and help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. The deep sleep benefits are really noticeable. So visit magbreakthrough.com/quite-frankly and order now. I'll also make sure and link that in the show notes. Go now to magbreakthrough.com/quite-frankly to get your magnesium breakthrough and find out this month's free gift with purchase. Well, one of the things that's really incredible about it is that there's 7 types of magnesium in it, right? I might need you to explain that a little bit, because even as I did my research before this, I didn't really fully grasp why those 7 are so important and how they're different. There was a supplement I was taking before. So I've been taking Magnesium Breakthrough for a couple of years now. First got it at the biohacking conference a couple of years ago. And there is a massive difference. You're right. It's felt. And now I really can't be without it. I travel with it. I was actually talking to Dave Asprey about this. There's a lot of supplements I just stopped taking, especially after I remineralize a lot, and I've done a lot of stem cells, like a ton of stem cell injections over the years. I just, in Mexico in April, I had over 100 million stem cells in an IV and in different parts of my body. And since I started doing that, I only take supplements intuitively, but the Magnesium Breakthrough is one that if I don't take it, it's definitely noticeable. So why the 7 types, and why aren't other companies kind of piggybacking and doing the 7 types as well?
Great question. So I call magnesium the miracle mineral. And so if we look at North America, due to when we moved from crop rotation in the 1940s after the after the post-war situation, we had to create monoculture production, and we used fertilizers. And then because the fertilizers made the plants grow, we had a mineral deficiency. We weren't doing the fallow and plowing the hemp back in and all that stuff. And then we started using herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides to fight off, because minerals are catamount to part of the defense mechanisms that plants will develop as well as people develop. And there's a whole variety of reasons. So we started dealing with a complete depletion of magnesium in all of our food products. And that's just been continually going. It's true to a lot of other vitamins and minerals. However, we also have a high consumption of calcium, particularly in North America, relative to magnesium. And calcium and magnesium exist in a 2-to-1 ratio. In other words, the magnesium is actually the control mineral to 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium. This is bone health is a common element. People think, oh, I want bone health, I need more calcium. Well, if your calcium is way high and your magnesium is low, you're going to accelerate magnesium deficiency and bone degeneration. And we see this happening. The second element is we are in a situation with high amounts of electromagnetic pollution now, to levels that we haven't considered before. And magnesium is involved in over 300 different biological functions.
Wow.
And on the gates of your cell, you have these things called aquaporins, which allow things to flow in and out. And these are controlled by, calcium, sodium channels. And then there's vasodilation and vasoconstriction. And magnesium is essentially the relaxation response inside of all of your tissues. So vasoconstriction can contribute to a migraine headache for someone. It can trigger a stroke or heart disease, and or cramping or restless leg syndrome, which a lot of people suffer from, or the inability to go to sleep. All of these are related to the inability to relax and downshift. And magnesium is involved in a lot of those metabolic and biochemical processes. And if you have a continuous depletion of that from a nutrition side, plus when you have these electromagnetic frequencies, there's good indication that your burn rate of magnesium accelerates under those conditions. So just like an 80-year-old grandmother probably doesn't need the protein of a 300-pound lineman. Okay, you could go to the RDAs, but that 300-pound lineman's got to stop other 300-pound guys from running over. Grandma just needs to get across the street without getting run over. So you are a subject to your function, and you are subject to your environment. And so all of these situations that we find ourselves in the modern world with all our advantages do have some consequences. No, I'm not here to, shut off all your EMFs and, move to off the grid and only eat biodynamic food. That's all well and great for a certain amount of people and knock yourself out. But the reality of most of us are, really like all the comforts and enjoyable aspects of the world. So we're looking as nutritionists to say, hey, I want to live my best life. I want to do the things I want to do. I want to be in the city and the grind and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I got EMFs going everywhere. I got my phone on and all this. Great. Okay, fine. Okay, how do I mitigate for that? How do I use my brain and my intelligence and my capacity to access resources and optimize? And humans are we're the apex predator on the planet, or the apex species on the planet, because our ability to collaborate and to adapt to whatever conditions we are. And so Magnesium Breakthrough is, from a philosophical aspect, is simply an adaptation mineral for the demands of the environment Homo sapiens find themselves in today. Now, to answer your question, so that was a lot to unpack.
Yeah, now the 7 types.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why 7 types? Real simple. I ran into a problem a number of years ago. What happened is I was running 3 companies. I'm traveling around the world. I'm staying up all these crazy hours. I'm hardly sleeping. So I got my biohacking to such a great level that I'm indestructible. If I only need 3 hours of sleep for 2 weeks in a row, no problem. I can still work out. So I had pushed the performance side a little bit, but then I started noticing I couldn't handle caffeine. I was getting jittery from it. I never had these experiences before. I was starting to forget things. And then the real kicker was I felt I couldn't sleep at night. And I've always been a good sleeper. And I was like, what's going on? I did a brain scan, and I had the brain of a 75-year-old. I wasn't firing my electrically very well. And then when I did a SpectraCell test, and I highly recommend people do a SpectraCell test. It's a way that they spin your blood and look at, how well you're absorbing, vitamins and minerals, et cetera, how well they're getting to your tissues. I was deficient in magnesium. And I'm like, I'm taking magnesium. How's this possible? So all of those conditions that I was subjecting myself were accelerating the loss of magnesium. And the magnesium I was getting wasn't doing the job. So I'm like, what do I need to do? So I literally went out and bought every single magnesium on the market that was available to me, every different type of magnesium. And there's actually, there's some other ones outside of the 7 that we use. So we tested all of these independently, and then in conjunction with each other, we create these big spreadsheets. Sometimes the experiments went wrong. We take too much of one product. We'd end up on the toilet for a couple of hours because we broke the GI barrier. That's a principle in orthomolecular nutrition. You take as much until you break the GI barrier, and that's your tolerance level for that vitamin or mineral. It's an interesting strategy developed by Linus Pauling Dr. David Hawkins and Dr. Abram Hoffer, probably the forerunners of orthomolecular nutrition. So when we went through this whole process, we came up with the various amounts of magnesium, their specific dosages that work synergistically together. Because when you go to the store or online and you read the research, what'll happen is they'll cite research that the practitioners used for that study. So in this study, they did magnesium malate. In this study, they did magnesium orotate. In this study, they did this. And so we don't know if the other magnesiums would work. We don't know if another magnesium would have been superior to that, or if an array was superior to that. So the studies limit the potentiated effect. Now, Matt and I have always been synergists. We've always found that the synergy of a group of products, oftentimes, if done properly in development, are usually greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So that's what synergy is. So we've changed this formula now, I think 3 times because we always feel that there's room to improve it. So when you go to the store and you see, magnesium what-the-hecalate, what does that mean? It means the bond that's attached to the magnesium. Now we have a theory. It's a working theory. This hasn't been proven in a double-blind study, but we have demonstrated in our own lab. We have a testing lab, but we've been able to produce these results, and we will be releasing that in the not too distant future. But your ability to absorb magnesium, we think that they're delivered to different parts of the body. So because the size of that molecule might be a little bit different, or maybe absorbed and utilized by a bacteria strain or across the barrier in a different way than one of the other elements, for reasons some known, some unknown. So we said, okay, let's put this together. So we came up with the 7 best ones that worked the best synergistically in our testing results, that we could feel somatically, that we could see in a spectra cell test, that we could look at our microbiome lab research and seeing that stuff is actually getting into the cells. That's how we settled to the product.
Wow. And I think a lot of people, they associate magnesium with sleep, right? But
yes,
it's so beyond that, isn't it?
It really is. I always say it's the stress reduction mineral. Again, that vasodilation, that relaxation point. It's also a key element in the development of neurotransmitters. And depending on where you are dominant in your neurotransmitter profile, and this is a wonderful sidebar that a lot of people don't understand, is that we all have different neurochemical drivers. So acetylcholine, dopamine, GABA, etc. Magnesium is critical in the formation of these neurotransmitters. So if you don't have enough magnesium, you might be sitting there at night and the brain keeps going and you can't shut it down because you don't have the neurotransmitters to downregulate. You might feel that you don't have the ability to relax the arterial blood supply to your brain. So you're experiencing a migraine headache, or you are not getting enough oxygen to the brain. Not because you're not breathing properly, it's because that tension, if you're using a lot of caffeine, and depending on your genetic profile means if you're taking a lot of caffeine, you're going to inhibit your ability to absorb magnesium. So all of these elements contribute to why you might have a magnesium deficiency. And so we've been able to determine these 7 types that have been best suited in combination in precision amounts to give the most amount of effect for the least amount of product. That's always the goal, is you want to bring the price of everything down to the best value for the person. Because I always say there's nothing more expensive than a product that doesn't work, but a product that does work becomes something that you don't want to be without. So we can get into the magnesiums if you like, but I think it's important to not just give data and definition without understanding, how did we come up with this? Why did we come up with this? How did this get developed? Why this has been such an outrageous success globally? And these are the reasons why.
Yeah, I love that you said that too, because a lot of times I always ask my guests to focus more on stories rather than data. So maybe like, you know, I had one energy healer, Gaia, on the show, and so many people who listen have told me they've booked with her. And honestly, that entire episode is just us sharing stories from from clients that we've worked with. And I love that. So do you have any good specific stories that maybe stand out for you of somebody using the product?
Yeah. So I remember I got an email from a lady who was in her 70s who had suffered from constipation for almost a decade. She was at her wit's end. She started taking our magnesium product and she goes to the bathroom regularly. Well, I've never met this woman, but in my mind, I see this little old lady living in a place in England at the time is when I got the email. This was a number of years ago. And I'm thinking, she's going to the bathroom every day. She feels great.
Yeah,
Right?
there's nothing worse than not.
Like that's really awesome. I got a recent testimonial of someone who said that they reduced their insulin medication significantly. Now, if people understand, people think, oh, you know, insulin just solves diabetes. No, it's a treatment, but the consequences of diabetes over time is significant. And depending on your genetics, magnesium is going to vary in its importance for blood sugar regulation. And of course, the more insulin that you require and take, the faster the degenerative and aging process, and the more likely that you're going to end up with the unfortunate complications that that particular condition entails. So when I see that testimonial, I go, yay, that's so great. And in my own case, in a few months, my electrical activity went right back up to a 20-year-old in my brain when I took it. And I didn't have the jittery effect from caffeine, because I do like to indulge in a variety of teas and coffee when I'm out with my friends. And so that was a relief for me. So that could be simple and it could be really strong.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you are somebody who drinks a lot of coffee and you have that adds stress, right, to the body, this is something that helps mitigate that. Is that right?
Indeed. And it reduces coffee has been shown for a lot of people. And there's going to be a variance genetically about it can inhibit your ability to absorb magnesium. So there's a common misconception in RDAs. RDAs were developed to what is a minimal amount for preventing disease. Okay. But that doesn't account for genetics. And now genetically, we know, depending on how you methylate, what's your microbiome, what's your dietary, what are the other elements that are being included with the consumption of food. All of this can contribute to how much of a given vitamin or mineral or nutrient that you can actually absorb and utilize. I'll give you a specific example because I like to use my own experience. I metabolize vitamin C like crazy. So I only need maybe 1 gram of a really high quality sucrosomal vitamin C per day. I've got a friend of mine that needs a minimum of 3, maybe 5 in divided dosages to get the same vitamin C. Now, it doesn't matter the brand, it doesn't matter the quality, that's the variance within the individual. So we help allow for people, and we suggest to people how they can titrate up or like increase the dosage or titrate down once they get to their, what we call the filled up level inside of the body.
How does somebody figure that out?
Yeah, well, the easiest way to do I think is preliminary, take a SpectraCell test. I think that's one of the gold standards to determine whether you're doing it. Number 2, get your genetics done by a great genetics team. There's a lot of great companies out there, and have your genetics read out to you by a naturopathic doctor that can help you interpret it. And the reason why that is because they will be able to identify both optimal genes and suboptimal genes. And I would suggest that you want to be considerate of your suboptimal pieces and supplementing around your diet around that, particularly because someone will say, well, I took this supplement and felt great. And the other person says, I took it and didn't feel anything. Well, oftentimes that variance in diet, lifestyle, and genetics are going to determine the outcome, how much you need, how much is going to be an effective dosage. And now on a layman's terms, what do I do? What's a simple way? We always say, start with 1 to 2 caps a day, start before bed, and then increase the dosage 1 cap in over 1 to 4 servings a day. So you'd start out at maybe a 0.5 gram like 2 caps a day, then maybe 3 caps, and then 4 caps. Now, the easy way to find out when you're at tolerance with magnesium is you'll get the runs. What that means is you've broken the GI barrier. You can do this with a lot of vitamins and mineral supplements. It was developed by Linus Pauling, David Hawkins, on applying how much your body can absorb without breaking the GI barrier. If you take too much of anything, you get the runs. So they would take their clients, take them to the point where they get to the runs, and then dial back. So if, let's say you got the runs at 3 grams or 4 grams or 5 grams, dial it back a half to 1 gram from that dosage and maintain that. If you get the runs again, dial it back another half gram. And what will happen is you'll go through a period where you'll take a pretty high dosage, and then you'll start to realize I don't need that much, or you won't be inclined to take that much, kind of like your story, where you said, all of a sudden, I don't need to take this anymore. Well, you filled up whatever your reserve is, and you don't need as much. And ideally, you go through that period, maybe 30, 60, 90 days, and then now you're on a maintenance dose. Or if you're in an extreme situation where you're going to be pushing the limits on an area, you can up the dosage to manage your stress response. And so you can do that through tracking, HRV tracking, how relaxed you are in the work. You can look at through your sleep trackers. You can look at blood sugar regulation, the glucose monitors. You can use SpectraCells. There's a variety of tools that will fit within each individual that can determine those things, but those will allow you to make the right determinations. And I always believe correlating data with your intuitive awareness of how I feel. Never over calibrate for data over how you feel, and never let how you feel, over calibrate for data.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
So you got to find that balance.
Yeah. I've never heard of the GI tract test. I like that. And, I don't want to focus too much on sleep, but I think it's important. And especially like I didn't sleep at all in my 20s. We talked about the Emmys in the background before we started recording. And, for 12 years, I was a journalist, and it was on a network level, on national TV. So because it was national, I was constantly traveling. And I remember I'd wake up and I'd sleep like 3 hours because we'd have to start at like 2 a.m. because we're doing everything on East Coast time. So if I'm in LA, I'm waking up at like 1 a.m., getting to the location by 2. I'm there until 9 a.m. And then we do it again for world news, and then again for, the prime time and all that. So not only did I not sleep, I'd sleep like 2 or 3 hours. I'd also have to remind myself when I woke up what city or what state I was in. I'd be like, where am I? Oh yeah, I'm in San Francisco. I have this shoot. Okay, got it. Like I'd have to remember because it was just constantly changing. So because of that, I take sleep so seriously now. And I'm like adamant about getting my 6 to 8 hours no matter what. Last night I slept 10. I took a melatonin suppository and knocked out because I just knew I needed more sleep. And, so I kind of gauge it that way. So I think I'd love to give some people who are working maybe those kinds of shifts, like overnights or something, things that I wish I knew back then and that I would have been doing back then. One of them would 100% be magnesium. Another would be red light. You can have little ones that you even travel with if you're in a hotel, so that you're at least not looking at blue light all night and then trying to go to sleep, disrupting your hormone system. So those are 2 that I'd probably recommend. Do you have a third, or do you want to add to those?
Creating a sleep routine when you shut off your electrical equipment. Eating before bed, probably one of the disruptors before sleep, and that's going to be a variance from anywhere from 1 to 3 to 4, sometimes even 4 hours for some people that just don't eat before you go to bed. That's really disruptive on the sleep process. Understanding your tolerance for electromagnetic pollution. There's a scale. Some people become literally have breakouts in it, or extreme migraines around heavy levels. And also Matt, my business partner, he has trouble. He's a genetically poor sleeper, and he's developed a whole strategy. He takes electrical tape and tapes the little red lights and everything in the hotel, and he uses blackout curtains, and he brings the temperature. I like to sleep around 68 degrees. I find if I lower the temperature, my sleep is deeper. Some people have sleep system beds that cool that. You see that advertised on NFL commercials all the time and all this sort of stuff. So basically, you want to create a sleep system, both at home and that's portable by a set of habits. we have a hierarchy of values that we address in our book about the nutritional pyramid of decisions that you need to think through. And anything that you want to do for the long term has to be included inside of a habitual program. It needs to be prioritized and then systematized so that you don't have to think about it.
You know, it's funny. As you were saying that about your business partner, Matt, I remembered I was at a resort in Mexico, near Tulum. I can't remember the name, Playa Carmen. And it was a beautiful resort. And I had breakfast with the owner on one of the days that I was there. And he was like, "You ever hear about this guy, Luke Story?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's a friend of mine." And he was like, he says he travels with red lights and puts them in his hotel room. I don't believe it. No one does that. And I'm like, no, he does that.
I know that we're going to go see him in a couple of weeks down. We're going to be on his podcast for the launch of the new book, which is exciting. So yeah, Luke's a great guy and he does do all those things. Just so if anybody's wondering, I can validate it. And Matt's the same way. Matt's really, he's really deep in the innovation side and he loves experimenting and he loves data. So he converts all of that stuff into data. And I mean, he's got the most sophisticated sleep system I've ever heard of.
And the last thing I'll just kind of add to the sleep. So I have a former colleague when I was at ABC. Her name is Elwyn Lopez. She's a reporter. She sent me a message like 2 days ago about she stopped. She really scaled back on the sort of stories she'll cover because she thought she was fine. She's healthy. She exercises and she went and got blood work and all this other stuff done. And she's pre-diabetic. She's young, like a young, healthy, beautiful. You would never think this is somebody that has health issues. She's pre-diabetic and all this other stuff was going wrong. And they linked it back to her lack of sleep and her like constantly being on the go, the high level of stress on top of that lack of sleep. So, there's things where you might see somebody and they look healthy, but there's things going on in the background from that lack of sleep or the high levels of stress, which magnesium helps with as well.
Absolutely. We have three aspects that we call the bioptimization triangle: aesthetics, performance, and health. And most of us get attracted into the health sphere through some sort of aesthetics. We want to look better, right? And particularly when we're younger, or if we're in a career where our looks are an aspect of how we present. The celebrity world is really, they're in a really tough situation in regards to that stuff. So I appreciate and understand why that's so important to them, because that's actually correlated with another piece, which is performance. Most of us, as we get into middle age, are hyper-focused to performance. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that you could be calibrating for aesthetics or you could be calibrating for performance at the expense of your health. Every athlete knows this. Every athlete knows that going out on a football field, going out on a track event, there's a certain amount of damage that you're taking in the pursuit of that sport. Every CEO knows that he's probably cutting a few years off his life in order to supply, the time, effort, and energy in order to make that company work. Every model knows that, or celebrity knows, like, hey, you know what? I got to cut a few things out so that I can maintain my active working career within my attractiveness, because that's a big factor in that industry. But at the end of the day, sooner or later, you're going to have to come to the bottom of the pyramid, and that is your health. And when we talk about living long and strong over time, well, that's going to be the final form, final factor, final decision, or the biggest influencer, especially as we get past our prime years. Most people have deferred to a treatment, pharmaceutical-based treatment and surgeries, and we have a disability-adjusted life expectancy in this country at 60 years old, which is terrible, with a life expectancy of around 80. So you're going to spend a quarter of your life compromised on a bunch of meds or surgeries or a degenerative condition. That's not acceptable to me. Right. And no, I'm not to disparage our medical community, but I'm like, we got a better model than that. Let's focus on health now. Let's get these tests now. Let's look at these things, get this, and preemptively deal with potential problems that could be coming down the road. So yeah, I get you got to perform. I know you want to look beautiful. Let's put that under the plate and under the examination of our decision tree earlier as opposed to later. And I do believe the quality of life that you're going to get in that 70, 80, 90-year-old zone is going to be so worth the investment in your 20s, 30s, and 40s.
And it can be both, right? So like, for example,
Yes.
when I'm getting the stem cells, a side effect is that I'm going to look better, to look younger, but I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing that for the shoulder pain. I'm doing it to maintain my, certain functions in the body, but it does all those other things that you mentioned. I actually did an interview, or it wasn't even an interview, it was a private meeting with Sadhguru, the
Yes.
massive guru, right? So in fact, when you were talking about the herbicides and pesticides and why we're magnesium deficient, I love that he said to me, our herbicides and pesticides are leading to suicide.
Yes.
And I love that line. But one thing he said that kind of what you touched on is, he said, I got into yoga in this lifetime, in this incarnation, because of vanity. He said we were playing this game where you would jump down a well, super dangerous, and then climb back up. And whoever climbed up the fastest, and he was a teenager, would win. And he said, and then this guy, like in his 60s or 70s, was like, I want to do it with you guys. And he came and played with these teenagers. He did it faster than all of them. And so Sadhguru was like, how did you do that? And he's like, yoga, go learn yoga. So he did it for vanity because he wanted to be the best at this game, but it ended up, changing the course of his life.
Same thing for me by getting into the bodybuilding world. I was attracted to the aesthetic, statuistic, the artistic side of bodybuilding. I love the idea of crafting a physical expression with what I had and overcoming certain limitations and accentuating certain pieces. And I love sculptures and arts and symmetry and these type of things. And I always say I have a face for radio, but I couldn't change that too much. But I was really excited about this side of things. And then in the pursuit of that, because it was tied to performance as a bodybuilder, your performance is tied to that. I became fascinated with the internal body, how it worked, and how health was important. My sister died very early, and I realized health wasn't a guarantee. Life wasn't a guarantee. I needed to find some strategies that I could offset that in my own life. And concordantly, that led to this career that I've been able to help tens of thousands of people around the world and get all these rewarding relationships, and kudos come in every day. I love all the testimonials, and it's awesome. But nothing gets me more juiced up than getting another testimonial from someone I've never met saying, thank you so much for changing my life and making me healthier. It's like, wow, I get to do this every day. How cool.
Well, I love how intuitively you took it there, because my next question is about bodybuilding, and specifically because you're in your 50s and you're right, and you're going back into, you're competing again, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, last year I hit the big 50. I turned 51 this year, and I was like, okay, I haven't competed in a lot of years. Well, let's get back into competition sake. And just for the listener, hey, I don't work out, to, hey, I go to the gym a few times a week, to I'm serious about building muscle or serious about losing body fat, to competitive bodybuilding. And competitive bodybuilding is way far down that. And I was like, well, I haven't done that for years. I've been running this company. I think maybe I could do this at 50, see what happens. So I set out a strategy and did that. I made a comeback, won the Ironman International, the Open Men's, and then won the Grand Masters. So I beat the young guys, and I won in my category, and which qualified me for the Mr. Olympia again in November, which I didn't anticipate. So I went to the Olympia again. It's my third time at the World Championships over the span of 20 years, which was exciting. I don't have the genetics to win the World Championships. There's like the guy that won. I walked up, and as soon as I saw him backstage, I was like, congratulations, you won the contest. You look awesome. Way to go. I was happy to be there. I can get to the World Championships with my knowledge. I'm not, genetically gifted in that stuff, but that's fine. And then afterwards I said, okay, cardiovascular health is so important. It's not what bodybuilders particularly focus on. At 50, I'm going to go run a marathon 6 months, because I don't know of anybody that's been at the World Championships in bodybuilding and then ran a marathon. And so I changed my training, went into that sort of practice. And 6 months later, I ran my very first marathon in just a smidgen over 4 hours with no experience necessary, by applying the principles that we go in 2 different outcomes, completely different.
And just for people to hear everything you just said, on top of that, you did it on a vegan diet.
That's right. Yeah. So I did it all plant-based.
And I do want
Yeah.
to talk about that because, I think like you have, by the way, one of the best protein powders that's all vegan based. I tend to not really go to vegan. I was vegan for 10 years and now I eat meat, but very little, like 2 days a month for the last few years. One thing I noticed with protein powders, a lot of them really hurt my stomach. Like it just
Yeah.
causes my stomach to churn. I don't know why yours doesn't do that. Actually, I haven't really looked at the ingredients. It was I got it a few years ago and just kept stuck with it. Why is it that it's not hurting my stomach like the others are?
Great question. So a lot of people don't know that we got into this whole business of bioptimizers because I ran into digestive health after my first Mr. Universe, blew out my gut, and then learned about enzymes and probiotics and digestibility and crossing the gut barrier, all this sort of stuff 20 years ago. No one was talking about it back then. So we started in that with using enzymes, probiotics, hydrochloric acid, amino acids, stuff like that. And then on the being on a plant-based diet, there just wasn't any good plant proteins. And when you go to the plant-based protein, a lot of people don't know that when you design these type of proteins, plants tend to be high fiber. They're a little bit chalky. They don't mix up that well. So what a lot of brands will do is they use emulsifiers, they use fillers, they use a variety of taste adjuncts in order to do it. And many of those really play havoc in your digestion. We literally did 172 different versions to get a plant-based protein that mixed up, that tasted good, and didn't cause digestive stress by not using any of those, gums and agents and like that people do to create that coagulation of protein. And I was super motivated. It took us like 17 years to come up with that product. So it doesn't make any sense financially or strategically, but that's why it's different than things that other people have done. And a lot of people are taking it now. They're taking the protein breakthrough chocolate and mixing it with the Nutopia, our cognitive enhancement product, call a genius, and they mix the two, and you just add a little bit of water and mix a pudding, and you make it into a pudding and eat it like pudding.
Oh, yum.
And it activates BDNF in the body because it's got all these different mushroom components. You put it, it's amazing. Like,
what are they mixing? What are they mixing?
So you mix it. You're mixing collagenous, which is a highly concentrated mushroom combination, which enhances BDNF production in the brain. And you mix it with the protein breakthrough in a little pudding. Like, you just add enough water to it instead of making a shake.
Oh, wow.
Just mix it together until it's a pudding, and then you eat the pudding, and kids love it. And it's really exciting. I got a lot of little. I'm the godfather for a bunch of kids, and I teach them how to make this pudding, and the kids are coming up in the morning and they're like, I want that pudding every morning. And it's good, it's healthy, and it tastes good. And you feel like you're cheating because you're getting like chocolate pudding for breakfast, and it's nothing but goodness for you.
I'm gonna try that. You should put that on like a reel or something on Instagram of you showing.
I do believe it is on our site somewhere, but I can make sure that one of our team members gets it over to you.
Yeah, please. I would love to share that. And then also you mentioned enzymes, which I'm glad you did, because it sounds like a promo commercial, but I swear you did not tell me to say any of this. But I also take your veg enzymes and your mass enzymes. So I actually just spent a week last month. I took my sister and we went to I love my family, but they're not the type that will ever do this thing for themselves. I have to take them. So I'm like, if I'm going to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca, I take my little brother, I'll take my mom, And so I took my sister and we went to Hippocrates, the Health Institute, right, in West Palm Beach. It was incredible. But a lot of people there from the diet, they give you this raw vegan diet. It's incredible. And I come from a background of more studying Ayurveda. I studied Ayurveda with Deepak Chopra. And so for me, I always thought you have to cook your food just at least a little bit to kind of, they talk about pitta, right? And pitta in the kitchen. But I kind of changed my perspective a little bit, but from going to Hippocrates, because I thought I couldn't get any healthier. And I just saw the little redness in my cheeks. I saw all the little inflammation in my gut that I didn't think was there. It all went away from just 1 week. I spent I think 9 days at this place and for eating a raw vegan diet. But the one thing is that it does kind of bloat you a little bit, and the enzymes really came to the rescue. Having these enzymes made a massive difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certain. So when you look at digestion, there's three elements that allow you to have healthy digestion. Most people, when they think of a diet, they think what I eat goes into my body and gets converted into energy units or building blocks. Well, that's not entirely true. The state of your digestive system is really important. And right now, 12% of the emergency hospital visits are gastrointestinal related. People have problems with digestion, and people talk about indigestion
Oh
and
yeah.
congestion. Why is that? Well, enzymes are involved in over 25,000 biochemical pathways. We're the only species on the planet that cooks its food. Okay. And when you cook your food, anything over 114 degrees destroys the enzymes present. So that means that your liver has to manufacture these enzymes, and it's distributed either through your gallbladder or your pancreas, if it's carbohydrate based or lipid based or whatever. And it's an inefficient way to digest. The second thing is low hydrochloric acid levels. And very common as people age, they don't produce enough hydrochloric acid. We think that we have problems producing too much, causing acid reflux. It's actually not enough, creates fermentation in the stomach, and then the little esophageal sphincter opens up, and some of that acid splashes up, and that's where you get heartburn and acid reflux. And they give you an antacid, but now you disrupt your digestion. Hydrochloric acid also disinfects from pathogens, bacteria, insects, parasites, all, viruses, all that sort of stuff in your digestive system. And then the final stage is your microbiome, which is all the variants of bacteria. So if you eat a carnivore diet for an extensive period of time and try to go immediately to a plant-based or vice versa, you can run into some digestive stress because that microbiome has adjusted to the diet that you have. So humans, we can vary our diet quite significantly, but enzymes accelerate the conversion of whatever you're eating into the pre-digested food that feeds our bacteria. The bacteria operate symbiotically with us. There's like 10 times the amount of bacteria in our body than we have cells. There's like 22,000 genes and like 3 million genes in all the bacteria culture. So it's a really big component. And so we're literally feeding the bacteria. So we want to break that food down and feed the bacteria properly so they can manufacture the energy units or the building blocks that our body requires. So when you take enzymes, especially if you take a few just before your meal, we have these little packs we call the ultimate digestive solution, which is enzymes, probiotics, and hydrochloric acid all in one simple pack.
Oh,
like
nice.
you just tear it and eat it, and it just solves 90% of the digestive problems people have. And you feel different. Like you go, oh, I don't have that bloating anymore. I go to the bathroom. I'm not like constipated for a couple of days after I've eaten that, either that big steak or that big vegetarian meal, depending on what your predisposed dietary style might be. And so we've created a vast array of that. And Vegzymes was specifically designed for people with a high fiber diet. I'm the king of fiber. I eat so much plants every day. It would probably scare a lot of people. And I know there's some people out there that says, oh, plants are trying to kill you.
Right.
Maybe they are, maybe not, but I figured out how to solve that issue. And a lot of people don't add plants to their diet because their enzymatic capacity to break down fiber isn't there, or they don't have the right microbiome. So when they eat plants, it's painful. And all they need to do is add a little bit of Vegzymes and the right probiotics, and boom, all those problems go away. And now they can get those nutrients that they weren't able to get before.
And I would assume it's probably like what you said earlier, right? So where you might need more of it in the beginning, and then you get to a point where your body starts getting used to digesting it and you just need less and less.
Yes. So there's a couple of tests that people can do. So how do you know if you don't have enough enzymes? What I would say is eat a traditional meal that you would normally do that might cause some digestive stress. Add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice after. If you don't get the digestive stress, you're probably a fresh lemon juice, you're probably deficient in enzymes. If it's a hydrochloric acid issue that you're not producing enough hydrochloric acid, just simply take 4 ounces of water with a half teaspoon of baking soda, stir it up, drink it on an empty stomach. If you burp within 5 minutes, you got enough hydrochloric acid. If you don't, you will do well by adding some hydrochloric acid. Now, with hydrochloric acid, probably 3 months of continuously using hydrochloric acid tablets, right around the time that you eat, you'll probably reduce your levels of that because it'll knock out H. pylori and some of the things that cause those problems. And then from a stool culture, you can do some of the stool tests to figure out which bacteria are right for you. Again, you want to correlate with that genetics, and you're probably going to need a naturopathic doctor that's going to have a specific test and understand your dietary stuff to get into that, because the microbiome tests still aren't sophisticated to the level that I would prefer yet. We're growing and developing and learning, but you really need some professional expertise to help you navigate that one.
Okay. And then just to make it clear for people listening, the veg enzymes that you mentioned are probably more for people like you and I who are high plant-based. And then for somebody who's eating more meat, they would want the mass enzymes, right?
Well, mass enzymes will handle most digestive components,
Okay.
except the cellulase side. It's not as good on the cellulase side because we've calibrated for protein. We have another one called Capex, which is calibrated for ketogenic diet people, and veg enzymes are more for plant-based. So mass enzymes is a catch-all. We got gluten enzymes for people who have gluten problems. You know, we've created an enzyme solution for whatever dietary strategy you are. So yes, the veg enzymes, plant-based people, as well as people who have trouble breaking down plant matter.
Got it. Okay. Oh, sorry, froze for a second. You mentioned earlier, you spoke a little bit about your sister and her passing away. Do you mind? Are you comfortable going a little into that? Yeah. Maybe what it taught you, or because I know it was. I remember from a previous interview I saw it was health related, right?
Yeah. So when I was 15 years old, three things happened. We moved to a very rural place. It was 5 miles to my nearest neighbor up a dirt road. Telephone poles ended at my door, and we moved 35 miles from the little village that we lived in to this place. So I had no communication with any of my friends or all that sort of stuff. Simultaneously, my sister was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is cancer of the lymph nodes, which is actually the detoxification system inside the body. It's 3.5 times the blood system, and almost no exercise physiology texts get into the whole lymphatic system. And over the course of 4 years, we were going to the hospital and doing all the treatments and all that stuff. We'd stop. It was like 55 miles from the hospital. We'd stop 5-6 times for her to get out and vomit after the treatment. And in my naive 15-year-old self, she was 4 years my senior, I was thinking, man, if you want to be healthy, shouldn't whatever your treatment is like make you feel healthier? And that was a burning aspect, and probably the trauma of all that experience led me to the career I has. And then she died at 22 years old. And I realized at that point, and that was just when I was entering university, and I thought, well, your health isn't a guarantee and your life isn't a guarantee. And seeing the erosion of us, you know, she was an excellent athlete and she was going to end on to a military career. She was really established in the Air Force. And seeing that all taken away, and us as a family having no idea what to do, just relying on medicine and doctors and whatever they had it was really frustrating. And so I think those traumas directed me to kind of find the ways to build as much health and vitality that we possibly could. Maybe I can't extend people's lives, but I'm extremely confident that I can improve the quality of the life that they have at the time they have been given.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. There's a few stories I picked up at Hippocrates from people who, you know, they'd be like, we'd go to the hospital, and these people either had cancer at the time, or they had come back because they had cancer previously. This place changed their life, and now they're like, you know, they gave me months to live, and now 4 years later, I'm coming back to Hippocrates again, or whatever it was. I heard all these stories while I was there. But a big thing I noticed is that when they're at the hospital, they're getting chocolate cake, they're getting Jello, I mean, it's insane that the Hippocrates is the father of traditional medicine, and yet they're not practicing what he said, which was, let food be thy medicine, right? And also
medicine be thy food.
Medicine be thy food. But also another thing that I didn't know that he said, I learned it while I was there, is that he said, don't look at the type of diseases people get, look at the types of people that get diseases.
Yeah. He also said that all disease begins in the gut. Was another thing. So how he determined all these things, I have no idea, because they're like 2,500 years ago or something like that. Yeah. Absolutely. What people don't understand is we have a medical system that's really good in acute care, but it is a business. And I'm often challenged by pharmaceutical companies, doctors, or whatever about we're very under strict regulations about what we can say or what we can do or how we can communicate things. And I could tell a bunch of stories here that would get us in all kinds of trouble, which
Yeah.
I have to always curtail. But the reality is this, it's a business model. And that business model is built on surgeries, drugs, and treatment programs. That's what it's built on. If you're in a hospital care, they're trying to, their focus is on that. It's not on the dietary aspects. They want to reduce the cost of that because that fits their business. They're trying to make a profitable business model that's successful in feeding you high quality, expensive food. I mean, if you go shop at Irwan, for example, and see the prices of the food there, I love it.
Yeah, I'm constantly there.
I love it. I love the place. I'm there all the time. And it's because for me, there's no, I'm price insensitive about my health because of the experiences of my life. I think it's the best in value investment for my life over finances, over everything, of being the best food quality, and they do a great job of doing that. But going back to that model, their business model is, we're not focused on drugs and medicine. They're on the other side of the equation. My goal is to be able to advocate for both sides of the equation. Let's have the best doctors in the world, and talk about the science and the research and the double-blind studies and the patented products. Wonderful. But don't give me lip service on the impact and efficacy of the food that you eat or the amount of exercise that you do that contributes to what put you in that hospital or what's going to get you out of there possible. I go, where's the science in Jell-O pudding and processed food on a health regenerative program?
Well, there is science, but it's the opposite. It's that sugar is going to feed the cancer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there is science,
it's the inversion. 3 hours of optional nutritional training is the average medical doctor, which is based on extremely outdated texts. If you look at the life expectancy of the medical community, it is significantly less than the general population. And either, depending on the results that you look, the third or fourth leading cause of death is medical error or contraindications from medical interactions. Wow. So the individual has to look at, what does the medical community has? Healthcare is not healthcare. Healthcare is a misnomer. It's sick care. I'm sick. I've been in an injury. I need to get something done. Yes, you can't take enough spirulina to fix a gunshot wound. Okay, you just can't. Okay, it's not going to work that way. Okay, nor are you going to reverse 50 years of degenerative conditions and lifestyle that you've been doing to get your health in order. Not going to happen. So we have to be honest in our assessment, and we also have to take extreme ownership. So treat your health like a CEO treats their business. A doctor is a professional expert that gives me opinion within the range of the company that like HealthCo, the company that I'm running here. Like, I'm running this, Operation Health. And the nutritionist is going to give me the nutrition information. And the spiritual teacher is going to give me the spiritual insights to help me resolve my psychological or my emotional traumas. The chiropractor is going to do this. The osteopath is going to do that. Everybody has an element inside of this picture to contribute to your health. So if we change the framework that the doctor is serving you, not the dictator of your life, then we change the equation. And also, never, ever, ever get a singular opinion from a medical person. Never do it. They won't do it. Why should you?
Wow. Yes. When I was, dumb, like 21-year-old, and I had to take that, like a driving course for reckless driving. And I remember the instructor said, if you're ever, drinking, and at the time there wasn't even an Uber, this is more than 10 years ago, she said, take a cab instead of driving. And somebody rose their hand and said, it's too expensive. And she said, if you can't afford a cab, you can't afford a DUI. It's way more expensive. And I think about that all the time with my health, where, okay, well, if you can't afford the organic food, you can't afford cancer. You can't afford all the, the things that come from eating that high corn syrup or whatever diet.
100%. I can choose any diet probably on any level. I'm very blessed and grateful for that experience. And I'm eating beans and rice and potatoes and salad every day, and I love it and I feel great. And it's kind of ironic, I could, go out and get the nicest steaks or get all the best cuts of beef. I just don't need it because I choose what's right for me. I'm not advocating that someone needs to do what I do. I'm just saying, yes, I also think of your health as an investment, as a long-term investment. And Peter Attia did a really nice, he's got some great information on longevity profiles right now in his new book. And he says, plot your course of your life, on a graph, and then look at the course of your kids and look at the course of your grandkids. And if you look at those, charts, when you get up into that 60, 70, 80-year-old, your ability to contribute and enjoy the fruits of your labors with your kids and your potential influence on your grandchildren changes dramatically with the quality of your life. And I thought, wow, what a great perspective to add to people. And also, I faced what disease looks like at a very early age. And as tragic as that was, the value that I extracted out of that traumatic experience was that, wow, if you don't have your health, nothing matters. All your dreams are done. All your experiences are compromised. Your quality of life goes down the drain. It makes sense a lot of people are focused on their 401k or their investment program or whatever. Think about what's a good pile of money if you're lying in a hospital sick. Right. Take a portion of that and invest it as strategically as you would on your most financially important and relevant issues. And I think you'll find out that you'll probably get more payoff from that than any amount of money that you might have.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. So I'd love to end the interview with just talking about your new book as well, which by the time this comes out, probably will be out. So tell people about that.
Yeah, so here it is. This is what it's called. It's called the Ultimate Nutrition Bible. We were published with Hay House. It's basically, It says how to easily create the perfect diet that fits your lifestyle goals and genetics. We have a crisis of information out there that I really empathetically feel for our consumers, both Matt and I. Matt, my business partner, is a ketogenic guy. I'm a plant-based guy. We run a company together. People go, how do you do that? What's happening is, and I've been in the industry so long, we see the rise and fall of what I call diet cults. Yeah. We also have to take responsibility as a whole collective group of experts that 97% of people who involve themselves in a dietary lifestyle will end up failing. So only 3% is winning. And I believe it's because they violated one of their hierarchy of values. They're going against their genetics, or they're integrating a lifestyle that's just not sustainable, oftentimes for those first things. Maybe it's spiritual, maybe it's psychological, maybe it's emotional, maybe it's behavior, maybe it's adherence, maybe it's family pressure. There's all these things. And we identify that. We show people how to choose the outcome that you want. Physical performance. Is it muscle building? Is it fat loss? Is it cognitive performance? Is it longevity? What's your genetics and what's your hierarchy of values? So you can decide, hey, it's kind of like a twist the plot journey. Which dietary strategy? We show how to succeed on every diet. What are the things you have to look for? What are the suboptimal pieces that you need to compensate for inside of those conditions? So, yep, I can be 50 years old and I can do a bodybuilding diet on a plant-based diet, and then I can go run a marathon. I can change that around and do cognitive performance. So it doesn't matter what type of diet that you're on. It says, is that diet right for you? Is it right for you right now? And is it right for you long-term? And the rise of our brains want to calibrate to a group and get part of that amygdala response of being part of a tribe. Yeah. But oftentimes that turns into dogmatic beliefs that inhibit you from taking the essential step that you need. And I learned so much from Matt, and he learned so much from me, even though we have completely opposing dietary strategies. Our overarching goals, we were able to feed each other information. So I think this book provides a great tool for people to identify how to select what's right for them, what kind of tests and experts they might need, how they can make a diet that works for them, that they can feel good about, and that they can easily stick on for the rest of their life. We're excited about putting it out, and it comes out in the next couple of weeks. So we're really pumped, and I hope a lot of people love it.
Congrats. Yeah, it's going to help a lot of people. I'll make sure to link to that also, so people know where to find it. Wade, is there anything you want to add? Is there anything I left out that you think is important for people to know?
I think most importantly is you don't eat the whole elephant at once. You eat it in bite by bite by bite. So just take the next step in your journey, whatever it is. Do one thing, take one product, read one book, do one thing, and build on it collectively. A lot of people will look at their mentors or people they want to look up to or be like or become like, and they don't realize that maybe 20, 30, 40 years of continuous integrations and applications and optimizations happen to get them to that point. And if you try to do all of it at once, oftentimes it's overwhelming. Start with one thing. We have a vast array of products and services at our site. We're very heavy on education. I created a whole course for people to help them select and to focus. We don't even talk about supplements to weigh down it. We want to focus on the basics of air and exercise and water and sunlight and all these components that we've forgotten about. But more importantly, any product or service that we provide, if you're not 100% happy, we just give you your money back so that you can redeploy that to some other aspect. We have great customer service, real people on the phone that answer your questions. And we hope that whatever you decide, we're not here to say, hey, buy our products or whatever. All I would like people to know is that your health is your number one asset. And it's great to share, it's great to have, and it's great to pursue. Continue doing it. Let's rewrite the trajectory of humanity. Let's make everybody healthier, happier. And I think it'll make getting along with the variances of the human condition much easier when everybody's from a highly resourced, helpful, happy place.
All right, Wade, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having it. It's such a grace. Thank you. And I'll make sure we get
again.
that recipe over to you.
I would love to do it again and in person next time.
Sure. Sounds great. Anytime. Yeah.